Welcome to the channel. My name is Matthias. Today we're going to talk about Captain America issues 328 to 331, where we have the first appearance, at least in costume, of Demolition Man. Because Dennis, who is Demolition Man, was already romping around the Marvel Universe prior to this. He would pal around with The Thing back when Ben Grimm was a wrestler. And this issue actually starts off with Steve Rogers. He's investigating where the Super Patriot has gotten his powers from. In the previous issue, Captain America had clashed against the Super Patriot. And even though the battle ended in a stalemate, Super Patriot was a handful for Steve. So now, the first issue actually starts off with Steve Rogers. He's investigating where the Super Patriot and the Buckies got their powers from. Now, he knows that we have this enigmatic character. His name is the Power Broker. He's involved in all of this. And he knows that somehow the Power Broker was involved with this whole situation with Marvel's Wrestling Federation. That aside, Steve Rogers arrives to this training facility for wrestlers. And he's immediately confronted by one of the people training there over the use of his costume. He can't convince the guy that he's the real deal. And he gets attacked by at least 10 to 15 wrestlers at the same time. They overwhelm Steve Rogers. And he's actually saved by Dennis Dunphy. So after clearing everything up, Cap convinces Dennis that he's the real deal. He explains to him his whole investigation, trying to find out who the heck is this Power Broker. So we get into the origins of Dennis and how and why he got his first power augmentations from the Power Broker. That he was a football player, but the thing is that he became too powerful for the sport. Therefore, he ended up in wrestling. But the thing is that the whole treatment that he got from the Power Broker, and everyone that had this treatment with the Power Broker, they had to use these hyper addictive drugs to maintain these powers. And many times these drugs made them psychologically unstable. But in the case of Dennis, he explains to Cap that he was able to kick these drugs, and he also kept the powers. We get this really bizarre and hilarious moment where Dennis is explaining to Captain America this whole situation, and he's going to take a shower, and he tells Cap, hey, want to take a shower with me? Steve Rogers is like, why not? They finish the shower. Dennis puts on some fresh new clothes while Cap puts the same costume that he had prior to the shower, the one that's all dirty and sweaty. He puts that back on. Because what happens is Dennis is able to convince Cap, look, let me work with you on this mission. He's like, I'm going to help you capture that Power Broker that has ruined so many lives. He even arrives at their first stakeout with a brand new costume that sort of looks like Daredevil's original costume with Wolverine's mask. It's actually super cool. He mentions to Cap that he's a major Daredevil fan. So that left me thinking, has he ever popped up in the Daredevil series? So what happens is D-Man and Cap end up finding the Power Broker's main laboratory. They actually discovered that his head of investigation is, I think this guy's like this very obscure Spider-Man villain, Carl Malus, which oddly enough was the main villain to the second season of the Jessica Jones Netflix series. So after defeating a couple of his augmented goons, so after Cap and Dennis are able to capture Carl, you start to get the impression that the Power Broker is no joke. Like the whole building goes into lockdown. D-Man and Cap have to deal with Power Broker's own personal army. You feel like the stakes are pretty high for Cap in this whole story because one underlying theme during this whole arc is he was sort of shaken after his battle with the Super Patriot, and he starts thinking about the fact that if he might need some type of augmentation, that he's not powerful enough for the new menaces of his modern or contemporary times. And then on the other hand, what we get to see in this story arc is that Demolition Man is a pretty competent sidekick. While Captain America actually has to make his way into the sewers with Carl Malus, he realizes that he can't go it alone against Power Broker's men. And in the sewers, Captain America comes across with all the defective experiments that Malus had created over all this time. So he starts fighting against these freaks when he comes across the Night Shift. This group of minor league villains and monsters who the leader of the team was the Shroud. They were sort of staples to the West Coast Avengers series. where this whole story arc took place in Los Angeles, I think. So the thing is that the Shroud was on to the Power Broker's activities, and we have like this interaction between Cap and the Shroud that even though he simulates all these situations, he makes the night shift do good things, but he tells Cap, please just don't blow my cover. So what ends up happening is that Captain America teams up with the night shift. They find where the Power Broker lives. We get a pretty cool battle against the Broker's forces. Captain America confronts the guy, and we get a fascinating interaction where the Power Broker tells him, look, leave now because you're biting off much more than what you can chew. And we discovered that there's a much larger conspiracy where the Power Broker was actually working with the US government to make this new generation of super soldiers. This will lead to conflict between Captain America and the US government. And here he's seen to be working with a group of villains, so this really does not help his case. Also in this scenario, one of these new super soldiers gets killed while fighting Captain America. It's an accident, but they pin the death of this soldier on Steve. And during this whole story arc, we discovered that it seems that the IRS really wants to investigate Steve Rogers because he had received $1 million from the government, even though he was declared dead or missing during World War II. This will actually lead to the fact that Captain America will have to renounce the title of being Captain America and forfeit his shield to the US government. But for now, we're going to leave this video here. I hope you guys liked it. See you guys next time. Bye.